Just hours before a major international football team boards a private jet, a poor little girl urgently warns that something terrible will happen if they fly. Dismissed at first, her words spread fast and eventually convince the coach to delay the trip. The plane crashes en route without passengers, and what follows changes her life forever. Before anything else, if this video finds you well, wherever you are, let me know how it made you feel at the end. He had built one of the world's most successful football clubs through a combination of shrewd business acumen, political connections, and an unwavering belief that excellence was not negotiable. Today was supposed to be perfect. His team, fresh off their Champions League victory just 2 weeks ago, was scheduled to fly to Dubai for a lucrative exhibition match against Bayern Munich. The private jet, a state-of-the-art Gulfstream G650, sat gleaming on the tarmac at Madrid's private airfield, its engines warming up for the 4-hour flight that would net the club €20 million. Presidente, called his assistant Isabella Rodriguez, hurrying across the tarmac with her tablet clutched against her chest. The players are finishing their final medical checks. We should be ready for departure in 30 minutes. Laurentino nodded, his mind already calculating the financial implications of this tour. 20 million for one exhibition match, plus merchandise sales, sponsorship bonuses, and the invaluable global exposure. At 78, he had learned that in football, as in life, timing was everything. The team bus pulled up beside the aircraft, its doors opening to reveal 22 of the world's most talented footballers. Diego Morales stepped off. The team captain's familiar smile lighting up his weathered face as he waved to the small crowd of staff and journalists. Behind him came Rafael Silva, the brilliant Brazilian winger, followed by Antonio Fernandes, the veteran midfielder whose vision on the field was legendary. "Presidente!" Diego called out, jogging over to shake hands with the authority that came from being team captain. "Ready for another victory?" "Always, my friend," Laurentino replied, clasping the striker's shoulder with genuine affection. These men weren't just employees, they were artists. Magicians who could transform leather and grass into poetry that moved millions of hearts around the world. As the players began boarding the aircraft, Laurentino allowed himself a moment of pride. He had built this empire from nothing, transforming Real Bridge from a respectable regional club into a global powerhouse that rivaled Barcelona and Real Madrid. The gleaming jet, worth €90 million, was a symbol of how far they had come. "Sir," Isabella said quietly, "there's a small situation at the security perimeter. Nothing serious, but—" Laurentino frowned. Security was paramount, especially with recent threats against high-profile football clubs. "What kind of situation?" "A local girl, maybe 10 or 11 years old. She's been trying to get past security for the last hour, claiming she has an urgent message for you. Security wants to remove her, but she's quite persistent." "Nerve." Through the chain-link fence surrounding the private airfield, Laurentino could see a small figure pressed against the metal mesh. Even from this distance, there was something desperate about her posture that caught his attention. "What does she want?" "She keeps saying something about the plane, sir, that something terrible will happen. The security team thinks she might be mentally disturbed or perhaps coached by someone with ulterior motives." Laurentino glanced at his watch again. 22 minutes until scheduled departure. The Dubai organizers were expecting them for a press conference at 6 p.m. local time. Sponsors had paid enormous sums for guaranteed appearances. Every minute of delay cost money, but something about the image of that small figure pressed against the fence nagged at him. Perhaps it was the memory of his own childhood in the poorest neighborhoods of Madrid, when football had been his only escape from poverty. Or perhaps it was simply the instinct of a man who had learned to pay attention to details others missed. 5 minutes, he told Isabella. I'll speak with her for 5 minutes, then we leave as scheduled. Isabella looked concerned. Sir, the security protocols. 5 minutes won't compromise our security. Besides, if we're going to represent this community globally, perhaps we should occasionally listen to what the community has to say. As Laurentino walked toward the security perimeter, he could see the girl more clearly. She was perhaps 11 years old, wearing a faded Realbridge jersey that had clearly been washed hundreds of times. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her face bore the earnest expression of someone carrying an enormous burden. "What's your name, young lady?" Laurentino asked as he approached the fence, his voice carrying the gentle authority he'd learned from decades of managing temperamental athletes. "Sofia Herrera, sir," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, but filled with desperate urgency. "Please, Presidente Ferez, you have to listen to me. Something terrible is going to happen if you get on that plane." The security guards exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, but Laurentino found himself studying the child's face with growing interest. There was no madness in her eyes, no calculated deception, only pure, frightening conviction. "What do you mean, Sophia? What kind of terrible thing?" I had a dream last night, a vision. I saw your plane falling from the sky, spinning down into the ocean. All the players, all those wonderful men who bring joy to so many people, they were." Her voice broke, and tears began streaming down her cheeks. "Everyone was gone, Presidente, everyone." Sofia Herrera had been awake since 3 a.m., the images from her dream burning behind her eyelids like flames that wouldn't die. At 11 years old, she had learned to live with visions that came without warning and left her shaking with their terrible clarity. But this dream had been different, more vivid, more urgent, more real than anything she had ever experienced. She lived with her grandmother Eleanor in a cramped apartment just 3 kilometers from the Realbridge training facility. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 7, leaving her in the care of the woman who had raised her mother and taught Sophia that some gifts were both blessing and curse. "Abuela," Sophia had whispered that morning, shaking the elderly woman gently awake. "I had another vision about the football team." Elena Herrera had opened her tired eyes and immediately seen the terror written across her granddaughter's face. At 74, she had learned to trust Sophia's unusual gift, even when it defied logic. "Tell me, mija." "The plane, Abuela. President Ferez's beautiful plane. I saw it falling into the water, breaking apart like a toy. All those players, Diego Morales, Rafael Silva, all of them, they were trapped inside and I couldn't help them." Elena had sat up slowly, her arthritis making every movement painful. "When, Sophia? When does this happen?" "Today. They're flying to Dubai today for the exhibition match. I have to warn them. I have to stop them from getting on that plane. Who will listen to an 11-year-old girl from the poorest part of the city? Someone has to listen. If I don't try, and something happens." Sophia's voice had trailed off, but Elena understood. Her granddaughter carried the weight of foresight like a stone in her chest. Now, standing at the security fence with President Ferez himself, studying her with intense brown eyes, Sophia felt the full weight of that responsibility. Behind her, she could hear other people gathering. Workers from nearby businesses who had noticed the commotion, a few journalists who sensed a story developing. "Sophia," Laurentino said gently, "dreams can feel very real, especially when we care deeply about something. You obviously love this team very much. Sir, with respect, this wasn't just a dream. I've been having visions since I was 6 years old. I saw the fire at the community center 2 months before it happened. I saw old Mr. Mendoza's heart attack 3 days before the ambulance came. I don't understand why I see these things, but I know they're real." The security chief, Captain Martinez, stepped forward. Presidente, with all due respect, we need to maintain our departure schedule. The girl seems sincere, but I'm not crazy, Sophia interrupted, her voice cracking with desperation. I know how this sounds. I know you think I'm just a poor girl trying to get attention, but I'm telling you the truth. She pressed her face against the chain-link fence, her small fingers gripping the metal mesh. In my vision, the plane took off normally. Everything seemed fine for about an hour. Then there was a problem with the engines. Both of them failed at the same time. The pilots tried everything, but the plane was too heavy, too far from any airport. Laurentino felt a chill despite the warm Madrid sunshine. What else did you see? The crash happened over the Mediterranean, about 2 hours into the flight. The plane hit the water so hard. Sophia closed her eyes, reliving the nightmare. There were no survivors, sir. 22 players, the coaching staff, the pilots, everyone. The whole world mourned. Isabella appeared at Laurentino's shoulder. Sir, we really need to... Isabella, call Miguel Santos. I want the head coach here immediately. The coach, sir, why? Because I want him to hear this girl's story. Laurentino looked back at Sophia. And call the pilot. Have him run a complete pre-flight inspection of both engines. Captain Martinez looked alarmed. Sir, you can't seriously be considering delaying the flight based on a child's nightmare. Captain, in 40 years of business, I've learned that wisdom sometimes comes from the most unexpected sources. This girl rode the bus for an hour to get here. She's been standing at this fence for 2 hours in the sun, crying and begging strangers to listen to her. That's not the behavior of someone seeking attention. That's the behavior of someone trying to prevent a tragedy. As they waited for the coach and pilot, Sophia noticed that word was spreading among the gathered crowd. Some people were taking photos with their phones, others were calling friends and family. She heard fragments of conversation. Little girl predicting a plane crash. Says she has visions. President Ferrez is actually listening. Sophia, Laurentino said quietly, if your vision is accurate, what should we do? Cancel the Dubai match entirely? I don't know, sir. I only know what I saw. But in my dream you didn't listen to me. You took off as scheduled. Sophia looked up at him with eyes that held far too much knowledge for someone her age. Maybe if you delay the flight, check everything twice, the outcome will be different. Maybe the vision was a warning, not a prophecy. 10 minutes later, Miguel Santos, the head coach, arrived in a golf cart, his face flushed with confusion and irritation. Presidente, what's this about? The players are asking why we're delayed. Miguel, I want you to meet Sofia Herrera. She has something to tell you about our flight today. Coach Miguel Santos had seen everything in 30 years of professional football. Players who claimed to be injured to avoid difficult matches, journalists who invented stories for headlines, fans who would say anything to get close to their heroes. At 55, he prided himself on his ability to separate truth from fiction, sense from nonsense. But as he listened to 11-year-old Sofia Herrera describe her vision of their plane crashing into the Mediterranean Sea, something in her voice made him pause. There was no dramatic flair, no attempt to embellish details for effect. She spoke with the flat, matter-of-fact tone of someone reporting news that had already happened. The engines failed simultaneously, Sophia continued, her small hands still gripping the security fence. In my vision, the mechanics later found that both had the same defect, something about the fuel injection system, but by then it was too late. Captain Martinez, the pilot, had arrived and was listening with growing concern. Little girl, what exactly did you see about the engines? I don't know the technical words, sir, but there were sparks, then smoke, then nothing. The plane became very quiet except for the wind, and you tried so hard to find somewhere safe to land, but we were too far from everywhere. We? Captain Martinez asked. In my vision, I was somehow there, watching everything happen. I could see you in the cockpit, sweating, talking rapidly into your radio. I could see the passengers in the cabin, some praying, some crying, some just holding hands. Miguel looked at Laurentino, then back at Sofia. Young lady, do you understand the seriousness of what you're claiming? This flight represents months of planning, millions of euros in commitments. Coach Santos, Sofia said, her voice strengthening. Do you understand the seriousness of 22 lives? I know this sounds impossible, but I'm telling you what I saw. Your players, Diego Morales with his 3 children, Rafael Silva, who sends money to his family in Brazil, Antonio Fernandez, who just got married last month, they all died in my vision. The mention of specific personal details about his players made Miguel's skin crawl. This girl, from her appearance clearly from a poor family, somehow knew intimate details about his team members' lives. How do you know about Rafael's family in Brazil? I read everything about Real Bridge. These players are heroes to people like me. We follow their lives, their families, their dreams. Sofia's eyes filled with tears again. That's why this vision hurts so much. These aren't just names to me. They're real people who bring joy to millions. Isabella approached the group, her phone buzzing constantly. Presidente, the media is picking up this story. Someone filmed the conversation and posted it on social media. It's spreading rapidly. What kind of coverage? Mixed reactions. Some are calling it a hoax. Others are saying we should listen. But, sir, if we delay this flight much longer, we'll face serious financial penalties from the Dubai organizers. Laurentino found himself at a crossroads that would define not just this day, but possibly the rest of his life. On one side lay decades of business experience, contractual obligations, and rational decision-making. On the other stood an 11-year-old girl whose conviction was either the product of genuine psychic ability or elaborate delusion. Captain Martinez, he said finally, how long would it take to conduct a complete mechanical inspection of the aircraft? For both engines? A thorough inspection would require at least 4 hours, sir. We'd need to ground the plane, bring in additional mechanics, and our current departure window. We're already 20 minutes behind schedule. Dubai is expecting us for the 6 p.m. press conference. If we delay more than 2 hours, we'll miss the entire media schedule. Miguel stepped closer to Laurentino. Presidente, with all respect to this young lady, we can't run a professional football club based on children's dreams. The players are ready, the contracts are signed. Millions of people are expecting this match. But Sofia heard something in the coach's voice, uncertainty masked as confidence. She had learned to read adults carefully, to sense when their words didn't match their feelings. Coach Santos, she said quietly, you're scared too. You felt something wrong this morning, didn't you? Something that made you check your watch extra times, maybe say an extra prayer? Miguel's face went pale. He had indeed felt uneasy all morning, an inexplicable anxiety that he'd attributed to pre-travel nerves. But this girl's words hit him like a physical blow. How could you possibly, because people who care about others often sense danger, even when they can't explain it. Your job is to protect those players, and some part of you knows something isn't right today. Isabella's phone rang, and she answered quickly. After a brief conversation, she turned to Laurentino with a grave expression. Sir, that was air traffic control. They're reporting unusual weather patterns developing over the Mediterranean. Nothing that would normally ground flights, but the conditions match what this girl described. The group fell silent. Around them, a small crowd had gathered. Airport workers, journalists, and curious onlookers, drawn by the drama unfolding at the security fence. Sofia, Laurentino said, his voice heavy with the weight of decision, if I order a complete inspection of the aircraft, if I delay this flight by 4 hours, will that change what you saw in your vision? Sofia closed her eyes, trying to peer into a future that felt fluid and uncertain. I don't know, sir. I don't. I've never tried to change something I've seen before, but yes, I think it might. In my vision, you dismissed me and took off on schedule. Maybe if you don't dismiss me, then we check everything twice, Laurentino decided. Captain Martinez, I want a complete mechanical inspection. Miguel, call the players back to the lounge. Isabella, contact Dubai and explain we're implementing additional safety protocols. As his staff hurried to implement these orders, Laurentino remained at the fence, studying the girl who had just convinced him to risk millions of euros based on a dream. Sophia, I'm trusting you with something very precious, the safety of people I care about deeply. I hope you understand the responsibility you've asked me to accept. I do, sir, and I promise you I would never lie about something this important. These players mean too much to too many people. The inspection took 6 hours. As evening descended over Madrid, Captain Martinez and his team of mechanics worked under portable floodlights, dismantling engine components with the methodical precision of surgeons. Word of the delay had spread throughout the football world, with reporters camping outside the airport and social media buzzing with speculation about the psychic girl who had grounded Real Bridge's flight. Sophia hadn't left her post at the security fence. Her grandmother, Elena, had arrived with a thermos of hot chocolate and a worn blanket, settling beside her granddaughter for what had become an anxious vigil. "Mija," Elena whispered, "what if they don't find anything wrong? What if this was just a normal dream? Then I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if I stopped something terrible from happening or if I just caused a lot of trouble for nothing," Sophia replied, her voice hoarse from hours of stress. "But Abuela, I had to try. I couldn't live with myself if I stayed silent and something happened." Inside the airport terminal, Laurentino paced the VIP lounge where his players waited with growing restlessness. Diego Morales, the team captain, had been fielding calls from his wife, who was worried about the delay. Rafael Silva practiced juggling with a rolled-up magazine, his usual method of managing anxiety. Antonio Fernandez sat quietly reading, but Laurentino could see the tension in his shoulders. "Presidente," Diego approached him with the respect and familiarity of someone who had played under Laurentino's leadership for 8 years. "The team is asking questions. What should I tell them?" "Tell them the truth. A young girl believes she saw our plane crashing in a vision, and I've decided to take her seriously enough to ensure our aircraft is completely safe." Diego's eyebrows rose. "You believe in psychic predictions. I believe in listening to people who have nothing to gain by lying. This girl risked embarrassment, ridicule, and possibly arrest to warn us. That kind of conviction usually comes from truth, not fantasy." Through the terminal windows, they could see the media circus growing larger. News vans from major networks had arrived, their satellite dishes creating a forest of technology aimed at broadcasting this unusual story to the world. "Sir," Isabella appeared with her tablet, "the story has gone international. CNN, BBC, ESPN. Everyone is covering the Madrid miracle girl. Social media engagement is through the roof." "What kind of response?" "Mixed, as expected. Some people are calling Sophia a hero for speaking up. Others think this is an elaborate publicity stunt. But, sir, there's something else you need to know." Isabella showed him the tablet screen, where a breaking news ticker scrolled across the bottom. Other psychic children coming forward with warnings about travel, disasters, public events. What does that mean? It means Sophia's story has apparently inspired other children to share visions they've been keeping secret. A 12-year-old in Barcelona is warning about a train derailment. A 10-year-old in London claims to have foreseen a building collapse. The authorities don't know how to respond. Laurentino felt the weight of unintended consequences settling on his shoulders. By taking Sophia seriously, had he opened a door that should have remained closed? Or had he started something that needed to happen? At 8:47 p.m., Captain Martinez finally approached the terminal with his preliminary report. His face was grim, his coveralls stained with grease and hydraulic fluid. "Presidente, we need to talk privately." They moved to a conference room away from the players and media. Captain Martinez laid out a series of photographs showing internal engine components, his hands shaking slightly as he pointed to specific areas. "We found stress fractures in the fuel injection systems of both engines. Microscopic, barely detectable, but progressive. Under normal flight conditions, they would have failed simultaneously, approximately 90 minutes into the flight." The room fell silent, except for the distant hum of air conditioning. "The failure would have been catastrophic," Martinez continued. "Both engines would have seized within seconds of each other. At cruising altitude over the Mediterranean, with the additional weight of fuel and passengers, we would have had perhaps 8 minutes of glide time before impact." Laurentino felt his legs weaken. "And the girl's timeline?" "Matches exactly. The failure would have occurred almost precisely when she described, in the location she described." Isabella covered her mouth with her hands. "My God, she really saw it. Captain, how is this possible? These engines passed all standard inspections. The fractures were hidden deep within the injection housings. We only found them because we were specifically looking for problems. A standard pre-flight check would never have detected them." Martinez looked directly at Laurentino. "Sir, that little girl saved every life on this aircraft. There's no question about it." The implications hit Laurentino like a physical blow. 22 players, coaching staff, crew members, all would have died if he hadn't listened to Sophia's warning. The girl who society would dismiss as a poor child with an overactive imagination had possessed knowledge that could only have come from. Where? What do we do now? We replace both engines. It will take 3 days minimum. The Dubai match will have to be cancelled or postponed. And the financial cost? The insignificant compared to the alternative, Martinez said grimly. An hour later, Laurentino walked back to the security fence where Sophia still waited with her grandmother. The girl looked up at him with eyes that seemed far too old for her 11 years. "You found it, didn't you?" she said simply. "Yes, Sophia, you were right about everything." Elena crossed herself and whispered a prayer of thanksgiving. Sophia simply nodded, as if she had expected no other outcome. "What happens now, sir?" "Now? Now I need to understand how an 11-year-old girl could possibly know something that our best engineers missed, and I need to figure out what this means for all of us." Laurentino looked at this child who had saved his team, his players, his life's work. "Sophia, I think God sent you to us today, and I think this is just the beginning of something much bigger than any of us can imagine." The morning after the engine discovery, Sofia Herrera woke to find her entire world transformed. Television crews lined the street outside her grandmother's modest apartment building. Reporters shouted questions in multiple languages, and her neighbors peered from windows with expressions of wonder and disbelief. "Abuela," Sofia whispered, pressing against the window curtain to peek at the circus below. "What do we do?" Elena Herrera, who had raised her granddaughter in relative anonymity for 4 years, felt overwhelmed by the sudden attention. At 74, she had hoped to spend her remaining years in quiet dignity, tending her small garden and watching Sophia grow up safely. Now, their faces were on every television screen in Europe. "Mia, we tell the truth and trust in God's plan," Elena said, though her voice carried uncertainty. "This gift you have, perhaps it was meant to be shared with the world." The phone hadn't stopped ringing since dawn. Reporters, television producers, book publishers, and what seemed like half of Spain wanted to speak with the miracle girl of Madrid. But it was the gentle knock at their door at 9 a.m. that changed everything. Elena opened it to find President Laurentino Ferres himself, flanked by just 2 security guards and looking far less imposing than he had at the airport. He wore casual clothes and carried a simple bouquet of flowers. "Mrs. Herrera, I'm sorry to intrude on your home, but I wanted to speak with Sofia privately, away from the media circus." Elena studied his face, seeing genuine concern rather than calculated publicity-seeking. "Please, come in. Sofia is finishing breakfast." The apartment was tiny, but immaculately clean. Family photographs covered one wall, showing Sofia's parents in happier times, Elena's late husband, and Sofia herself, growing from infant to the serious 11-year-old she had become. Laurentino noticed that despite their obvious poverty, there was dignity and love in every detail. "Sofia," Elena called, "you have a visitor." Sofia appeared from the kitchen, wearing her school uniform and carrying a piece of toast. When she saw Laurentino, her eyes widened with surprise. "President Ferres, what are you doing here?" "I came to thank you properly, and to talk about what happens next." They sat around Elena's small kitchen table, an unlikely trio whose lives had become intertwined by circumstances none of them could have predicted. "Sofia, because of you, 22 men will go home to their families tonight instead of," Laurentino's voice caught. "I don't have adequate words to thank you." "You don't need to thank me, sir. I just did what felt right. But that's exactly why I'm here. Last night I couldn't sleep thinking about this gift you have. How long have you been having these visions?" Sofia glanced at her grandmother, who nodded encouragingly. "Since I was 6, after my parents died in the car accident. At first, I thought everyone could see things before they happened. When I realized they couldn't, I got scared and stopped talking about it. What changed your mind yesterday? The vision was so clear, so terrible. And it was about people I care about. I couldn't stay quiet and let it happen." Laurentino leaned forward. "Sofia, I've been thinking about this all night. What if your gift isn't meant to be hidden? What if it's meant to help prevent tragedies?" Elena looked concerned. "Senor Ferres, Sofia is just a child. This attention, this responsibility, it's too much for someone her age. I understand your concern, Mrs. Herrera, but consider this. Yesterday, Sofia prevented a catastrophe that would have devastated millions of football fans worldwide. What if she could prevent other disasters? What if there are other children like her who have been afraid to speak up?" Sofia had been listening quietly, turning a spoon over and over in her small hands. "President Ferres, what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that we create something new. A foundation, perhaps, where children with abilities like yours could come forward safely, where their visions could be investigated respectfully, scientifically, where they wouldn't have to stand at security fences, shouting warnings that no one believes." The idea hung in the air like a bridge spanning an impossible gap. "You mean like a place where kids who see things could help people?" "Exactly. The Sofia Herrera Foundation for Extraordinary Children. We'd have psychologists, scientists, investigators, people trained to evaluate and respond to supernatural warnings respectfully." Elena shook her head. "This sounds very grand, but Sofia needs a normal childhood. School, friends, time to play. She would still have all of that. This would be supplemental, carefully managed, and Mrs. Herrera with respect. Sofia's childhood was never going to be completely normal. This gift she has, it's not going away. The question is whether we help her use it constructively or force her to hide it." Sofia had been unusually quiet during this exchange. Finally, she spoke in a voice that seemed far too mature for her 11 years. "Abuela, remember what Mama used to say about gifts, that they're not really ours to keep, they're ours to share. If I can help prevent terrible things from happening to people, don't I have a responsibility to try?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Ay, mija, you sound just like your mother. She always wanted to save the world." Maybe that's why I have this gift. Maybe it's her way of still helping people. Laurentino felt moved by the girl's wisdom. Sophia, would you be willing to help me create this foundation? To help other children who might be struggling with abilities they don't understand? What would I have to do? For now, just be yourself. Continue going to school, living with your grandmother. But if you have other visions, we'd have a proper way to investigate them. And if other children come forward, you could help them understand they're not alone. Sophia looked at her grandmother, seeing decades of struggle and sacrifice in the weathered face she loved so much. Abuela, would this help us? Could we maybe afford your medicine more easily? Elena tried to protest, but Laurentino understood immediately. Mrs. Herrera, the foundation would ensure your family's financial security. Sophia would receive a scholarship for university, full medical coverage for both of you, and a comfortable living situation. But more importantly, she'd be protected from exploitation while being free to use her gift responsibly. I need time to think, Elena said finally. Of course. But while you're thinking, consider this. Yesterday, one brave little girl saved 22 lives. Imagine what might be possible if we supported other children with similar gifts. As Laurentino prepared to leave, Sophia walked him to the door. President Ferez, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you really believe God gave me this gift? Or do you think I'm just lucky at guessing? Laurentino knelt to her eye level. Sophia, I've spent my entire life in a world where success comes from calculation, planning, and careful analysis. Yesterday, you accomplished something that no amount of planning could have achieved. If that's not divine intervention, I don't know what is. As his car pulled away from the modest apartment building, Laurentino knew his life had been irrevocably changed. Sophia Herrera had saved his team, but more than that, she had opened his eyes to possibilities he had never considered. 1 week later, the press conference announcing the Sophia Herrera Foundation for Extraordinary Children drew media attention from around the globe. The venue was Real Bridge's magnificent stadium, but this wasn't about football. This was about changing how the world responded to children who claimed to see the impossible. Sophia sat between Laurentino Ferez and Dr. Carmen Mendoza, a renowned child psychologist who had agreed to head the foundation's research division. Despite the overwhelming attention, Sophia appeared calm, wearing a simple blue dress that Elena had bought for the occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, Laurentino began, 1 week ago, this 11-year-old girl prevented a tragedy that would have devastated our football family and shocked the world. Today, we announce our commitment to ensuring that no child with extraordinary abilities ever has to stand at a security fence, desperately trying to convince adults to listen. The Sophia Herrera Foundation will provide a safe, scientific environment for investigating supernatural warnings and supporting children who demonstrate unusual perceptive abilities. We're not here to promote superstition, but to explore phenomena that science doesn't yet fully understand. Dr. Mendoza took the podium next. Too often, these children are dismissed, medicated, or told they're imagining things. The Foundation will provide proper evaluation support and, when appropriate, investigation of their claims. When Sophia finally spoke, the room fell completely silent. Her voice was clear and steady, carrying confidence that seemed impossible for someone her age. A week ago, I was just a girl from a poor neighborhood who loved football. I never wanted to be famous or special, but I had a vision of something terrible, and I couldn't stay quiet about it. Now I know there are other kids like me, kids who see things that haven't happened yet. She paused, looking directly into the cameras. To those children, I want to say, you're not crazy, you're not alone, and your visions matter. The Foundation will listen to you, believe you, and help you understand your gifts. The questions from reporters were respectful. When a BBC journalist asked if she worried about encouraging delusions in vulnerable children, Sophia responded with wisdom beyond her years. "Sir, I'd rather investigate 100 false visions than ignore one real warning. The engines on that plane were going to fail, whether anyone believed me or not. Believing me didn't create the danger, it prevented the tragedy." After the press conference, Sophia found herself in Laurentino's office, overlooking the training grounds where her favorite players practiced. "President Ferrez, what happens now?" "Now, we begin the real work. Dr. Mendoza has already received 47 calls from parents whose children claim to have visions. We'll evaluate each case carefully, scientifically, respectfully." Sophia walked to the window, watching the players she had saved practicing below. Diego Morales waved when he spotted her, and she waved back with a smile that transformed her serious young face. "Sometimes I wonder what my parents would think about all this. Do you think they'd be proud? Sophia, you saved 22 lives through courage and determination. You've created a foundation that will help children worldwide. I think your parents would be incredibly proud." That evening, in her grandmother's apartment, Sophia sat at her small desk, working on homework that seemed absurdly normal given the day's events. Elena brought her hot chocolate and sat beside her. "Mija, are you happy with what we've started?" Sophia considered seriously. "I'm scared, Abuela, but I'm also excited. For the first time since my vision started, I don't feel like I have to carry this burden alone." As Sophia finished her homework, she couldn't know that tomorrow would bring her most powerful vision yet, one that would test everything the Foundation represented. Sophia's next vision came 3 weeks after the Foundation's launch, striking her during math class with a force that made her gasp and clutch her desk. Mrs. Garcia noticed immediately as Sophia's face went pale and her hands began trembling. "Sophia, are you all right?" But Sophia was no longer in the classroom. In her mind, she stood in a crowded train station in Barcelona, watching hundreds of commuters rushing to catch the 3:15 p.m. express to Valencia. She could see the train clearly, sleek, modern, packed with business travelers and families. Then the vision shifted, showing her the same train, derailed horrifically, just outside the city, cars twisted like broken toys scattered across a hillside. "The Barcelona train," Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's going to crash." Mrs. Garcia knelt beside her student's desk, concerned by Sophia's pallor and the way her whole body was shaking. "Sophia, you're having another vision, aren't you?" Sophia nodded weakly. "Today, the 3:15 train to Valencia. Something's wrong with the tracks near kilometer marker 47. I can see so many people hurt." Mrs. Garcia immediately reached for her phone. "I'm calling Dr. Mendoza at the Foundation." Within 20 minutes, Dr. Carmen Mendoza arrived at the school with a small team from the Foundation. They had established protocols for exactly this situation when Sophia had a warning vision. "Sophia," Dr. Mendoza said softly, "tell me everything you saw. Take your time." Sophia closed her eyes, revisiting the terrible images. The train leaves Barcelona at 3:15 p.m., completely full. About 40 minutes into the journey, near a curve in the tracks marked with the number 47, something goes wrong. The rails, they look bent, twisted. The train tries to take the curve but can't stay on the tracks. How many passengers? Hundreds. Families. Business people, children. In my vision, the front cars go down an embankment. People are trapped, screaming for help. Dr. Mendoza checked her watch. 1:47 p.m. They had less than 90 minutes before the train's scheduled departure. "Sophia, you're absolutely certain about the location? Kilometer marker 47? "Yes, and there's something else. In my vision, I saw workers near the tracks earlier today, men in orange vests doing maintenance work, but something went wrong with what they did." Dr. Mendoza immediately contacted Captain Rodriguez, the Foundation's liaison with Spanish authorities. The conversation was tense. Convincing railway officials to halt service based on an 11-year-old's vision remained challenging, even with the Foundation's growing credibility. Captain Rodriguez says they'll send an inspection team to kilometer marker 47 immediately, Dr. Mendoza reported. But they won't delay the train unless they find actual evidence of track damage. Sophia felt the familiar weight of responsibility crushing down on her small shoulders. What if they don't find it in time? Then we trust the process we've established. Your track record gives us credibility with authorities. At 2:43 p.m., Dr. Mendoza's phone rang. She answered immediately, her face growing grave as she listened to the report. "They found it," she said, ending the call. "Kilometer marker 47, exactly where you said. A section of rail was improperly secured during this morning's maintenance work. The inspection team says it would have failed catastrophically when the first heavy train tried to navigate that curve." Sophia felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion wash over her. They're stopping the train? All service on that line has been suspended until repairs can be completed. Sophia, you just prevented what could have been Spain's worst railway disaster in decades. As news of the prevented train disaster spread across Spanish media, Sophia sat with Elena in their small kitchen, helping her grandmother prepare dinner. "Abuela, do you think I'll have these visions forever?" Elena paused in her cooking, studying her granddaughter's face. "I don't know, mija, but I know that for now, God has given you this gift for a reason." Sophia nodded, accepting the mystery of her abilities with resignation beyond her years. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and possibly new visions. But tonight, hundreds of families would sleep safely because an 11-year-old girl had spoken up about a dream that felt too real to ignore. 2 months after the Barcelona train incident, the Sofia Herrera Foundation had become a global phenomenon. Dr. Mendoza's research team had identified and begun working with 17 children across 6 countries, each demonstrating some form of precognitive ability. But it was 12-year-old Marcus Williams from London who would present their greatest challenge yet. Marcus had contacted the foundation through their website, claiming to have visions of terrorist attacks. Unlike Sophia's specific warnings about accidents, Marcus saw deliberate acts of violence planned by people determined to cause maximum harm. "Dr. Mendoza," Sophia said during her weekly session at the Foundation's Madrid headquarters, "I've been having dreams about Marcus, not visions like my usual ones, but regular dreams where I'm trying to help him carry something very heavy." "Or, what do you think that symbolizes?" "I think Marcus sees things that are even more frightening than my visions. And I think he's scared that people won't believe him." Dr. Mendoza had been struggling with the same concern. Marcus's latest report described a coordinated attack on multiple locations in London, planned for the following week. The detail was extraordinary, but the implications were staggering. "Sophia, I want you to speak with Marcus via video call. Sometimes children can communicate with each other in ways that adults miss." An hour later, Sophia found herself looking at a pale, serious boy with dark circles under his eyes. Marcus Williams looked like he hadn't slept properly in weeks. "Hello, Marcus. I'm Sophia. Dr. Mendoza says you've been having visions like mine." "Not like yours," Marcus replied, his London accent making him seem older than his 12 years. "Yours prevent accidents. Mine are about people who want to hurt other people on purpose." "That must be terrifying." "It is, because when I see a plane crashing because of mechanical failure, that's tragic but not evil. When I see people planning to hurt children, that's different." Sophia felt a chill despite the warm Madrid afternoon. "Marcus, tell me about your latest vision." Marcus closed his eyes, struggling with the weight of what he carried. I see 5 men, all young, all angry. They've been planning for months, 3 locations, a shopping center, a university, and a tube station during rush hour. When? This coming Thursday. They want maximum casualties, maximum fear. Sophia understood the problem immediately. Her visions involved mechanical failures that could be verified through inspection. Marcus's visions involved human intentions that couldn't be proven until people acted on them. Marcus, in your vision, do you see anything specific that could help police identify these men? One of them works at the shopping center, in the electronics store. Another one is a university student studying chemistry. The third works for Transport for London. Sophia felt her stomach clench. They're attacking from the inside. Exactly. They have access, knowledge, and legitimate reasons to be in their target locations. Dr. Mendoza, who had been listening, looked troubled. Children. I need to contact Commander Hayes at Scotland Yard immediately. Marcus, I want you to write down every detail you remember. As Marcus began documenting his vision, Sophia found herself thinking about the weight of responsibility they carried. Her visions prevented accidents, terrible but unintentional tragedies. Marcus's visions revealed deliberate evil. Dr. Mendoza, Sophia said quietly, we need to help Marcus with more than just reporting his visions. He's dealing with knowledge that no 12-year-old should have to carry alone. What do you suggest? Maybe all of us gifted children should work together more closely, share the burden, support each other. Marcus shouldn't have to face this kind of responsibility by himself. Sophia, how would you feel about traveling to London to work with Marcus directly? Sophia thought about her comfortable life in Madrid, her school friends, her grandmother's small apartment that had become a sanctuary. If it would help prevent people from getting hurt, then yes, but Abuela comes with me. That evening, as Sophia helped Elena pack for their first international trip, she couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental was about to change. Abuela, what if I'm not strong enough for this? Elena stopped folding clothes and looked at her granddaughter seriously. Mija, you've already proven you're strong enough to save lives. Now you're being asked to help save another child who's struggling with an even heavier burden. The meeting with Scotland Yard took place in a sterile conference room. Commander Sarah Hayes, a stern woman in her 50s, sat across from Sophia, Marcus, Dr. Mendoza and Elena with barely concealed skepticism. Let me understand this correctly, Commander Hayes began. You want us to launch a major counter-terrorism operation based on the dreams of a 12-year-old boy? Marcus flinched at the dismissive tone. But Sophia reached across and took his hand supportively. Commander Hayes, with respect, they're not dreams. Marcus sees real events before they happen, just like I saw the plane crash. Miss Herrera, preventing a mechanical failure is very different from predicting human behavior. People can change their minds, alter their plans, Doctor. Mendoza leaned forward. Commander, Marcus has provided specific details that can be verified. He says one of the attackers works at Westfield Shopping Centre in electronics. Another is a chemistry student at King's College. Do you understand how many people fit those descriptions? Marcus spoke with quiet intensity. Commander Hayes, in my vision, the man at Westfield has a tattoo on his left wrist. 3 Arabic words. The chemistry student lives in a flat in Bethnal Green with his sister. The TfL worker drives a blue Ford Focus with a dent in the rear bumper. Commander Hayes's expression shifted slightly. These weren't vague predictions. They were specific, actionable details. And you claim this attack will happen tomorrow? Thursday afternoon, during rush hour for maximum impact. The shopping centre bomb is set to detonate at 4:30 p.m. The university attack happens at 5:15 p.m. The tube bombing at 5:45 p.m. at King's Cross Station. Sophia watched Commander Hayes processing this information, seeing professional skepticism warring with the uncomfortable reality that Marcus's details were too specific to be fantasy. Commander, Sophia said quietly, I know this sounds impossible, But I've learned that sometimes impossible things happen anyway, and when they do, you have to decide whether to trust them or ignore them. And if we act on this information and find nothing, then you'll know for certain that Marcus was wrong, Dr. Mendoza replied. But if you don't act, and he's right. Commander Hayes stood and walked to the window, looking out at London streets where millions of people were going about their daily lives, unaware they might be in danger. Dr. Mendoza, your foundation's success rate with these predictions is what, 85%? 87% based on 34 verified investigations. And the consequences of ignoring a genuine warning. In Marcus's vision, the death toll exceeds 300 people. Commander Hayes returned to the table, her decision made. We'll investigate. Quietly, carefully, but thoroughly. If your boy is wrong, this meeting never happened. If he's right, then he'll have saved more lives than most adults manage in a lifetime. As they left Scotland Yard, Sophia noticed that Marcus looked drained. Elena, who had remained quiet during the meeting, was studying the boy with concern. Marcus, Elena said gently, when did you last have a proper meal? I don't remember. Since the vision started getting stronger, I haven't felt much like eating. Elena immediately took charge. Then we're going to find a good restaurant. And you're going to eat while Sophia and I tell you about managing this gift without letting it consume you. Over fish and chips, Elena shared her wisdom. Mijo, the visions are part of you, but they're not all of you. You must eat, sleep, play, and laugh, or the darkness will overwhelm the light in who you are. As they finished dinner, Dr. Mendoza received a text. Her face went pale as she read it. Commander Hayes, they found him, the electronics worker with the Arabic tattoo, exactly where Marcus said. He was carrying blueprints of Westfield's security system. Marcus looked up from his barely touched meal. Does that mean they believe me now? It means they're taking your warning very seriously. Thursday morning arrived with grey London skies. Sophia woke early, immediately checking for updates from Dr. Mendoza. Marcus knocked on their door at 7 a.m., looking like he hadn't slept. I keep having the same vision over and over, he said. But now I can see more details. Like the attacks are getting closer and the images are becoming sharper. What new details? Sophia asked. The chemistry student. His name is Ahmed, and he's planning to use his university access card to enter the building after hours to plant the device. The TfL worker is scheduled to work the late shift today. Dr. Mendoza arrived with news. 2 of the 3 suspects are now under arrest. The electronics worker was found with detailed plans of multiple shopping centres. The TfL employee was caught attempting to access restricted areas of King's Cross Station with suspicious materials. What about the university student? Marcus asked urgently. Still at large. Police raided his flat this morning, but he wasn't there. His sister says he didn't come home last night. Sophia felt apprehension. Marcus, in your vision, what happens if they only stop 2 of the 3 attacks? Marcus closed his eyes, accessing the terrible knowledge his gift provided. The university bombing still happens. But later, after he realizes his partners have been arrested, he gets desperate. Instead of waiting for evening classes, he decides to detonate during the lunch period. When? Today, around noon. Dr. Mendoza immediately called Commander Hayes. Ahmed Hassan had used his university access card to enter the science building at 5:47 a.m. They're evacuating King's College now, Dr. Mendoza reported. But Marcus, they need to know. Where exactly did you see the bomb? Marcus pressed his hands against his temples. The chemistry lab, 3rd floor, but not the main lab. A smaller room, like a storage area. He hides it behind boxes of equipment. Sophia watched her friend battle with his visions. Marcus, you're doing everything you can. But Marcus shook his head. There's something else. In my vision, I see Ahmed watching the evacuation from across the street. When he sees police entering the building, he has a backup plan, a vest with explosives if he can't detonate the main bomb. He's going to walk into the crowd of evacuated students. Dr. Mendoza's phone rang. They found the bomb exactly where Marcus described, but Commander Hayes wants to know any other details that could help locate Ahmed. Sophia made a decision. Dr. Mendoza, tell Commander Hayes that Marcus and I are coming to the university. We need to be there. Absolutely not, Elena interjected. It's far too dangerous. Abuela, Marcus might see things in person that he can't see from a distance. If Ahmed is planning to attack the evacuated students, we might be able to spot him. An hour later, they found themselves 3 blocks from King's College. Watching from behind police barriers as hundreds of students gathered in the safety area, Marcus scanned the crowd and nearby buildings with focused intensity. There, he said suddenly, pointing to a coffee shop across the street. 2nd floor window. Ahmed is watching, waiting for his moment. Sophia followed his gaze and saw a young man in the window, his attention fixed on the crowd below. Dr. Mendoza relayed Marcus's observation to police, who immediately surrounded the coffee shop. Within minutes, they were escorting Ahmed Hassan from the building, his suicide vest disarmed. As the danger passed, Sophia realized they had just prevented 3 coordinated terrorist attacks by working together. Marcus, she said as they watched police cars driving away, do you realize what we just did? We stopped people from dying. We proved that children with gifts like ours don't have to carry the burden alone. When we work together, we're stronger. The aftermath brought unexpected challenges. Sophia and Marcus found themselves at the center of a global media storm that dwarfed even the attention Sophia had received after saving the football team. News organizations demanded interviews with the psychic children who had prevented a massive terrorist attack. We need to leave London immediately, Dr. Mendoza told them, as news vans gathered outside their hotel. This level of exposure isn't healthy for either child. Sophia was more worried about Marcus. The boy who had carried the burden of seeing planned evil was now struggling with global attention. Dr. Mendoza, Marcus can't handle this pressure alone. Look at him. Through the connecting door, they could see Marcus sitting on his bed, staring blankly while his mother fielded calls from reporters. He looked fragile, overwhelmed. What do you suggest? Bring him back to Spain with us. Let him live with Abuela and me for a while. Away from all this attention, he needs time to recover, and I think he needs to be around people who understand what he's going through. Elena looked surprised. Mija, you want to share our home with this boy? Abuela, remember what you taught me about gifts being meant to be shared. Marcus has a gift that saved hundreds of lives, but it's also tearing him apart. If we can help him learn to manage it the way you helped me, then that's what we should do. Dr. Mendoza considered the psychological benefits. Sophia had learned to balance her gift with normal childhood experiences, largely due to Elena's wisdom. Marcus might benefit enormously from that same stability. I'll speak with his mother. 3 days later, Marcus Williams arrived in Madrid, carrying a small suitcase and wearing the uncertain expression of someone whose entire world had changed. Elena met him with the same warmth she had shown Sophia. Bienvenido, Marcus. Welcome to our family. The transition wasn't easy. Marcus spoke little Spanish, struggled with different food, and often woke screaming from nightmares, but Sophia proved to be the perfect guide. The visions don't stop, Sophia explained as they walked to school together. But you learn to create space between the visions and yourself. You learn that seeing terrible things doesn't make you responsible for them. It makes you responsible for warning people who can stop them. But what if people don't believe me? What if I'm wrong? Then you learn from it and trust yourself more the next time, Marcus, before the airplane vision, I had been wrong about smaller things. But I kept reporting what I saw because staying silent when people might be in danger was worse than being wrong. At school, Sophia's classmates immediately embraced the shy English boy who had helped prevent terrorist attacks. "Marcus," said Maria Santos during lunch, "are you scared all the time?" Marcus considered seriously. "I used to be. But living with Sophia and her grandmother is teaching me that being scared of your gift is less important than being grateful for it." 6 weeks later, Dr. Mendoza visited to assess his progress. She found a dramatically different child, still serious, but no longer carrying the crushing weight of isolation. "Marcus, how are you feeling about your abilities now?" "Different. When I have a vision now, my first thought isn't, why me? It's, who do I need to tell?" Sophia taught me that the gift isn't the burden. Keeping it secret is the burden. "And how has it been for you, Sophia?" "Amazing. When I have a vision now, I don't feel alone with it." Marcus and I talk through what we see, help each other understand details. It's like having a brother who truly understands. Elena looked up from her cooking. "Doctor, these children have taught me something important. The gift isn't just about seeing the future. It's about seeing that the future can be changed through courage and community." That evening, the apartment felt complete. 2 children with extraordinary abilities had found family in each other. "Sophia," Marcus said as they prepared for bed, "do you think there are other children like us out there?" "I know there are, and I think it's our job to help Dr. Mendoza find them." 1 year after Sophia's first vision, the Sofia Herrera Foundation had grown into an international network supporting 43 gifted children across 12 countries. Sophia, now 12, and Marcus, 13, had become the organization's youngest advisors. The morning of the foundation's anniversary began with Sophia experiencing her most powerful vision yet. But this time, it wasn't about preventing disaster. Instead, she saw something beautiful, children from around the world gathering in Madrid to share their gifts and support each other. "Marcus," she said excitedly, "I think the foundation should host an international conference, bring together all the gifted children so they can meet each other. Share experiences, learn that they're not alone." Marcus, whose visions had evolved to include positive events, nodded enthusiastically. "I've been seeing something similar, children working together on problems that none of them could solve individually." That afternoon, they presented their idea to Dr. Mendoza and Laurentino Ferez. "An international gathering of psychic children," Dr. Mendoza mused. "The logistical challenges would be enormous. But the psychological benefits could be transformative," Laurentino added. "Sophia, you and Marcus have thrived by supporting each other. Imagine what might be possible if all our gifted children could form similar bonds." 6 months later, the first International Conference of Extraordinary Children convened at Real Bridges Stadium. 43 children, ages 6 to 16, arrived from countries across the globe. There was Anna from Sweden, whose visions helped locate missing persons. David from Australia, who could sense natural disasters. Yuki from Japan, whose dreams revealed solutions to complex scientific problems. Sophia stood before the assembled group, no longer the frightened 11-year-old who had clung to a security fence, but a confident young woman who had learned to embrace her destiny. "1.5 years ago, I had a terrible vision of a plane crash. I was scared, alone, and certain that no one would believe me. Today, I look at all of you and see that none of us has to face our gifts alone anymore." Marcus stepped forward. "Each of us sees different things, but we all see them for the same reason: to help protect people who can't protect themselves. Alone, we're just scared children with strange dreams. Together, we're a network of guardians watching over the world." As the conference concluded with the children forming support partnerships across continents, Sophia realized that her gift had evolved from a frightening burden into the foundation of a global family. That evening, as she and Marcus helped Elena prepare dinner in their small kitchen, Sophia reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A vision of disaster had become a vision of hope, connecting extraordinary children across the world in a network of protection and support. "Abuela," Sophia said as they set the table for their international family of guests, "do you think Mama and Papa would be proud of what we've built?" Elena smiled, watching the gifted children from around the world sharing stories and laughter in her modest living room. "Mija, I think they're watching over all of us, grateful that their daughter's gift has become a blessing not just for you, but for children everywhere who needed to know they weren't alone." The gift that had once isolated Sophia had become the foundation of an unbreakable global community, proving that even the most extraordinary burdens become lighter when shared with those who understand.